So this reminds me of a story. This is a story I wrote just for tonight's service. The Goddess and the Redbird. So let's settle in. If you brought your blankets, let's snuggle into our blankets, because tonight we're celebrating the darkness, the coziness of winter. If you did not bring a blanket, that's fine. You can just snuggle into yourself. And Adam, could you turn the lights down just a tiny bit? Thanks. A long, long time ago, when the earth was young, she would play all day with the sun. The sun was young too, you see, and they had lots of energy, probably like many of you young ones in here. The earth had many names. Some called her goddess, others called her maiden or sister. Nobody called her grandmother yet. She was too young for that. The sun was bold, hardly ever sleeping, rising so early and warming the earth day after day, and they played together with wild, rollicking joy. But of course, as the goddess Earth grew up, she knew that there was work to do. So she would get up early with the sun and go about her work, blooming flowers, helping the trees grow big and strong, helping to weave nests and dig burrows for all the little animal friends. And one of the goddess's best friends was a cardinal, a bright red bird who loved to play with the goddess and the sun, joining their games and helping with their work. But most of all, the cardinal loved to sing. He would sing his heart out when the sun god got up in the morning, and again when the sun god went to bed at night. But as the goddess Earth and the sun god grew older, the cardinal noticed that they were settling down a bit, slowing down a bit, you might say. And the cardinal realized that he too wanted to settle down, maybe find someone to love and cherish. So he sang his song, and sometimes the goddess would hold him on her finger and sing back to him. And then the earth and the sun fell in love. And soon, so did the redbird with another cardinal, whose color was not as brilliant as his bright red plumage, but to his eyes she was brighter than the sun himself. The cardinal and his mate would sing together, and then they created a nest together, and soon eggs appeared in the nest. Not long after, followed by little hatchlings. The baby birds were so cute. The goddess Earth came to admire them, and she brought gifts of a juicy caterpillar for each open beak. The trees were lush with leaves, the air was warm with the light of the sun, and all was well. But the cardinal began to realize that the goddess seemed more tired. Her belly was growing bigger, and he soon realized she was going to have a baby. But the sun god, though he loved the earth, was also slowing down. It seemed that he had aged many years overnight. The cardinal began to worry about his beloved friends. He would sing to them like before in the morning and the evening, but with the sun getting more and more tired, it seemed that his songs were getting closer and closer together. And the dark sky with Grandmother Moon was lasting longer and longer. Cardinal would bring gifts to the goddess, who sometimes rested on a pile of leaves that had begun to fall from the trees. He would bring a nut or some seeds, a fluffy flower or a red feather from his wing, trying to encourage her to run and play and work all day like she did in the early days. "Don't worry, little friend," said the goddess to the cardinal as she snuggled herself deeper in a blanket of mossy leaves. "There's nothing wrong. We can't run and frolic and play and work non-stop. It can't possibly last forever without a break. Sometimes we just have to let go and rest." I want to give a special thanks to my colleague Kira Klarenbach, who is a Wiccan priestess, and also to our resident pagan expert, Heather Wesley, for reading through this story and making sure it fit theologically with what we're doing tonight. And so we return to our story with the concerned cardinal and the tired goddess and the oh so quickly aging sun who cannot stay up in the sky for very long anymore.
Don't worry, little friend.
The goddess said to the cardinal as she snuggled herself deeper in a blanket of mossy leaves.
There's nothing wrong. We can't run and frolic and play and work nonstop. It can't last forever, not without a break. Sometimes we just have to let it go and rest.
But despite her reassurance, the cardinal was a little worried. It was all fine and good for the goddess Earth and the sun god to rest all day, but the air was getting cold, and the leaves were falling off the trees, and the bugs and nuts and fruits were becoming scarce. As he flitted around, worrying and hoping, gathering whatever he could find to eat and stay warm as the sky grew darker and darker, the goddess came to him and to his partner. His babies had all flown off on their own by now, but they still shared a life together, he and his beautiful brown love. The goddess's arms were full of fluffy green piles. You almost could not see the top of her head.
These are for you.
She set them down into the ground, and to his surprise, the cardinal realized that they were trees. Big ones. How had she carried them? Who knows? She's a goddess after all. And while all the other trees had lost their large, flat leaves, these trees were full of lush green needles.
We call them evergreens. They'll stay green for you and help keep you warm when the sun god cannot provide his light for a while. Just nestle in their branches and remember the promise that the green will return.
And she smiled, a sort of sad smile. The sun god was aging rapidly now. The cardinal knew this, and the rumor throughout the forest was that he was dying.
How will the green return? I know it's hard to talk about Mother Earth, but we all know the truth. The sun is dying, isn't she?
This time the goddess smiled again, a sweeter smile more filled with a kind of gentle joy, and she rubbed her belly.
Yes, little bird, he is, but that is the sacred cycle of life. He will die and return to the earth, and then again the sun will be reborn. It will take the new baby sun time to grow and bring back the warmth and the green, but he will. He will grow and play and frolic and work, and you'll see, little friend, you'll see.
And so as the forest was blanketed with thick snow, the cardinal and his partner nestled deep in the branches of the evergreen tree, and they ate what they could find, and then they fluffed up their feathers for warmth, and they stayed very still in the long winter night, remembering the busy, hectic, playful days gone by and realizing that it did feel nice to just slow down and see the stars and sing and snuggle. And when it seemed like it could not get any darker, word spread throughout the forest.
The sun god has died.
And the cardinal was sad, but he trusted what the goddess Earth had said. It was all a part of the cycle. And he decided to go and pay a visit to his friend, the goddess. And so he left the safety and warmth of his evergreen tree, and he flew to her home, where he found her resting under piles of fluffy white blankets. Were they furs? Were they clouds? Who knows? She's a goddess after all. Her eyes were closed, but he knew something was changing. She was breathing deeply in a way that he had never seen before. He offered his help, but she shook her head.
It's okay, little friend. It's all part of the cycle.
And so he sang to her. And he brought her pine cones and snowflakes, and then he and his partner flew to the sky, and they brought back starlight. And they wrapped the trees around her home with glittering, sparkling lights. And then when they had waited and waited and waited, they heard the sound of a baby's cry. And they knew that the sun had returned.